Hello, Houston. I'm Elizabeth Liz Miranda, your bilingual realtor with Miranda Properties, and welcome to our show, Casa, Vida, Houston on CBBA Radio. So the first thing, as always, we want to thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Susie Condelopoulos, and Susie is a loan officer with Gateway Mortgage. And guess what? We're going to have her here today. So she is bilingual, and certainly, you can, if you're looking to get pre-approved for a home loan or get refinanced, you can call Susie. But we'll talk to her a little bit more. Next, we have our second sponsor, which is Texas Low Cost Insurance, and they specialize in homeowners insurance. And anywhere in Houston or anywhere in Texas, if you're looking for homeowners insurance or flood insurance, give them a call at 281-941-2863. And guys, definitely with this rain, you want to remember to get that flood insurance. Make sure that you give them a call anywhere in Texas. All right, well, later on on our show, we're going to have another guest who's going to be Victor Escalante. And Victor Escalante is going to talk to us about NLP, which is a neuro-linguistic programming, and just other things that he does. He's a wonderful speaker, great trainer and coach, and we're going to talk to him a little bit further during our show. But first of all, today I want to start off by introducing our co-host, Sonia Rivera. Sonia, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Liz. Glad to be here again.
You're very welcome. And then our first guest I also want to introduce is Susie Condelopoulos. Welcome, Susie.
Welcome, Susie.
Thank you both, Liz and Sonia. I'm so happy to be here with both of you today.
You're very welcome. So the first thing that I want to say is I wanted to mention, by the way, that this is we just completed our 24th week, or actually today is our 24th week on the show, which is really 6 months. So what happened is bottom line is we started our show in March, and we signed up for 6 months, and we just finished our 6 months. So we are super excited, and what I want to do, of course, I want to thank Jose Manuel Diaz, who was our first co-host of the show. He was on for about 6 to 8 weeks, and couldn't have done it without him, because trust me, it's not easy to do a show. So I was so happy to have Jose as our first co-host. So thank you, Jose. And then of course I want to, after I had Jose on for about 6 or 8 weeks, I had some other agents that came on with me until finally we got Sonia. So thank you, Sonia, for joining us on our show.
Glad to be here. It's been an exciting opportunity for me to get used to being in front of the camera. I remember the first time I came, it took me about 2 or 3 days before I watched the show, because I hate to see myself on camera. But it's been fun. It's been a great time.
And how this is how many shows have you been on already? Do you know?
I think this is probably my 6th show.
Oh, wow.
Maybe about 6, yes.
Yeah, and of course, Sonia has helped us a lot with getting guests. It's not an easy thing to do. I think that sometimes people think it's easy to do a show, but it's not, because you've got to find guests. And Sonia has been very instrumental in helping us find guests. She's very well connected. She knows a lot of people, and like she said, it's not an easy thing, right? It's not an easy thing to get started on the show.
To get used to your voice and your facial expressions, and it's always difficult to watch yourself. And it makes me think of some actors sometimes when I'm watching actors review their movies or whatever shows that they're doing. I've actually heard it historically that a lot of them don't watch their own stuff, and I can completely see why, because we're so critical of ourselves. And so it's been a fun experience. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. I know that when I first started, what I would do is right after the show, I'd watch myself. I mean, as soon as I left here, I'd be in the car and I'd be watching that thing, or let's just say listening to it. But at the stops, I'd look at the phone. So I was watching myself, and then I'd get home and I'd watch it again. I'd watch the whole thing, and I would look at every little thing, like every little mannerism that I made, everything that I said, my hair. You name it. I was just so critical of myself. And but I think I finally just got to where I just accepted it. I'm like, now I just learned to just go with the flow.
Yeah, I actually think it's really good training, though, because if you think about business skills or professional development skills, I think that knowing how you present yourself is great. it's great training. And so this whole experience has been really, really good for me in that respect to know, I talk with my hands quite often, so I've been having to try to control that. But I think that any business setting that you go into, any professional environment that you go into, it's always good to understand how you come across and what signals nonverbal signals you're putting out there. So I think it's been a great experience, not only just because it's fun to do the show and to meet the different people that we have on the show, but also to be able to go back and look at ourselves and analyze what we could do better, and learn presentation skills, because they're such a needed skill in the business world.
You're right. You are right about that I never thought about that. I guess I'm just experiencing it, but not really thinking about it, that it is very good training for business. And one of the things, like, Sonia and I were talking about earlier, that sometimes you have to be prepared when you have a show, because our show is absolutely live. Some of you are going to watch it, pre-recorded, but it's live. And so one of the things is that we realized early on is that we have to be prepared in case of rain. Like today, it was raining when I left my home. It was raining, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what would happen if I couldn't make it, if I got stuck in traffic, or because of the rain? And so, or what if my guest doesn't show up because it's raining? And so you kind of have to learn to be prepared. And it's the same thing like when you're giving a speech, when you're doing training, when you're teaching classes, you have to be prepared for the unexpected. So I certainly think that this has definitely helped me to be a more prepared person.
Yeah, and I think also to move in and out of different states. So, there's so many things. It's the middle of the day, and most of us are going through the day. Some of us don't take lunch at any particular time. So you're going through the motions of your day, conducting business, or, taking care of whatever you need to take care of, and then shutting it all off and mentally prepare yourself to be on camera is another thing. And also, in terms of presentation skills, because people do judge us based on, what is it, the first 30 seconds of meeting somebody, you've already made an assessment of that person. So I think that it's been really great training, and being able to switch from one thought process to a different thought process and put yourself in a great state of mind. And yeah, it's great training. So I've had a lot of fun, and thank you very much for inviting me to be on it.
You're
It's
welcome.
been fun.
And it is a lot of fun. That is true. But of course, we wouldn't be able to do it without a sponsor, because this it is fun. We do this for fun, but of course, we also have to have sponsors. So that's why I introduced Susie, and I definitely want to thank Susie Candelopoulos, because Susie was our first sponsor for the show, and she's been our sponsor throughout the whole time. And so thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah,
it
well,
really has.
And I know that she does it, in part to get her name out. But more than that, I know that Susie is a very strong supporter of the Hispanic community. She always has been. We were just talking earlier how, I met actually Susie through NHPO many years ago. Would have been like 14 years ago, when she and the company that she was with at the time were one of the main sponsors of NHPO when NHPO got started. So
We were just children.
yeah, just children. I mean, it was the first year, and so they supported that organization and so many other organizations. So I know that she would do it. Part of her does it because it's a business thing that she does, but I know she would do it anyway, because she loves to support the Hispanic community. So I definitely appreciate that. And of course, she's also been a guest. So what do you think, Susie, as far as being a guest?
Oh, well, definitely, like Sonia was talking about a few minutes ago, it's definitely been such a wonderful opportunity. Just to, like she said, you get in front of the camera. We're not used to being in front of the camera, but it's definitely helping me to develop my presentation skills and the way that I speak and present my products and my services to everyone. And I just, really thank you for allowing me and inviting me to partner with you and to be the guest on your show when we're talking about mortgage loans and real estate. It has been great. It really has been a great experience.
And Susie, you're a broker, or what specifically do you do?
I'm a loan officer, a mortgage. So I work for Gateway Mortgage, and I've been a loan officer for many years. I've been in banking for 30 years. And when I was very young, just a baby, I started banking and part-time teller, and I did everything in the bank up to manager, and I learned loans, and you learn different things in the branches when you work in a bank and financial services. So in 2007, I decided I just wanted to be a loan officer, and that's when I got my loan officer license. And I've worked for several companies, and I've been with Gateway the last year, and it's a very good company. So we just we offer all the loans that we mortgages. We offer loans to we offer mortgage loans, and we offer we do not offer lot loans, but in a few minutes we can go over that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, which is a good transition because actually that is our first topic. You know, we always like to start our show talking about real estate because, of course, our show is Casa y Vida. So we talk about casas, real estate, and then we talk about vida. And so that is certainly our first topic, and we'd love to get into that, you know, because that's why we have Susie here, because Susie is one of our experts on mortgages. And Susie, you know, one of the things that I'd love to talk about today would be, I know we have a lot of different things we want to talk about and can talk about, but, you know, I always like to talk about the do's and don'ts of getting a loan. What can you share with us some tips on maybe some things that people shouldn't do or mistakes that you find people making when they're getting a loan?
Oh yes, there's a lot of things as you just mentioned, and I think I'd like to start with maybe when people are, the first thing you need to do is get your credit in line. So a lot of people sometimes will make mistakes when they're younger or maybe have a hardship in life and they're not able to keep up with their bills, and sometimes some of those bills will go into collection or charge off or those kind of things. Unfortunately, sometimes we have foreclosures or bankruptcies on the credit report. So the first thing that I think people should do when they're interested in buying a home is they need to have their credit pulled so that a loan officer can go over that credit report with them to see if they're ready or not.
Right. And by the way, Sonia is not a real estate agent or a loan officer. So Sonia, feel free to ask questions also. And I love to get, you know, somebody else's perspective as just a consumer also. So definitely let us know.
Well, I do have a question actually on
Sure.
credit. So how far back do you, say somebody has a great credit score presently, how far back do you look? How far back does perhaps somebody had negative credit 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Does that
Sure.
come into play when you're considering a mortgage?
A mortgage, yeah, that's a very good question, Sonia. So when we pull the credit report, as a mortgage, any mortgage loan officer will pull all three credit bureaus, so it's called a merge report. So actually the report goes back as far as the person started their credit report. So that could be a few years, it could be 5, 10, 20 years, depending on the age of the consumer. But the good question that you had is, how does the accounts in the last few years affect? Definitely the most recent 24 months of credit payment history is what's going to impact your credit score. More so the last 12 months. So let's say you had a late pay on your car payment in the last 12 months, that's really going to make your score go down. If it was 4 years ago, it's not going to impact it as much.
So if it does, so say you did have a late payment on your car payment a year ago, and it does affect your credit score, is that something that's a make or break situation for someone trying to buy a home?
Well, that's another great question. If that's all that's on your credit report, yes, but most of the time people will have other credit lines, and that leads us into another area that we could talk about. We really would like to see at least 3 current trade lines, meaning a car loan and maybe some credit card payments, maybe an installment loan. And so if it's just going back to your question, if it's just the car loan, that yes, it would have a great impact. But if not, if it was a year ago, the car payment, but you have other credit cards that you've been paying well on, it won't impact it as much, as long as it's 12 months or more that it's been. If it's been within that last 12 months, yes, it will impact it greatly.
Okay. We are talking to Susie Condolopoulos with Gateway Mortgage about mortgage loans, and we were talking to her about credit. So we left off on credit. Did you have any other questions, Sonia? Sonia's our resident consumer here.
Credit question asker. So on break we were talking about credit, because that's there's so many misconceptions about credit, and I was mentioning to Susie about I'm being a lot more diligent on how I take care of my credit report, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I think that so many people assume that as long as they're paying their bills on time, that they're going to have a great credit score, and that's what Susie and I were discussing. Susie, do you find that to be a pretty common issue when people apply for?
Yes, that's very common. So a lot of people will go out and someone will tell them, or they'll think that it's just a good idea to get a lot of credit cards and to max amount. Max amount meaning, so if it's $1,000 credit limit, they charge up to $999. Well, that and then they'll pay them on time every month. They'll pay the minimum payment. Well, that is good that you're making the minimum payment on time every month. But what happens is when you have a lot of credit cards or any credit card that's up to the limit, it looks like to the credit analyst and to the credit scoring matrices, when they pull the credit score, it looks like being maxed out actually is a negative. So you want to keep those credit cards. With the example of $1,000, you want to keep it at $500 or lower, preferably $400, and not let it pass that 50% margin. Because what happens is once you max out on the credit card, your credit score starts to drop. So that's a very good question, Sonia, because that's a big misconception.
Do you guys do, I'm just curious because I think so many people are not aware of that. Do you guys do any kind of credit counseling when you know if somebody comes to you and they want to buy a home?
Yes.
Are there workshops that you do or something
Yes.
that can prepare the homeowner?
We partner. A lot of mortgage loan officers, because we do talk to a lot of consumers and we are talking to people making applications and we're pulling their credit. A lot of us will partner with a credit improvement company. There's several good ones out there. I partner with a couple, and they both have representatives that will work with the clients and will send it to them for a few months. Just depends on, everyone has a different credit profile. So I do work with a couple of credit repair people here in Houston, and all of the people I work with are bilingual. They have to, the people I work with and any of my partners in title or insurance, appraisers, everyone has to be bilingual because my clientele is mostly Hispanic and Spanish speaking. So I do have some credit repair ladies that we work with, and they are Spanish and English speaking.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if someone wants to buy a home, what length of time do you recommend that they should start the process
Good.
before they
Good
plan on
question.
actually?
Very good question again, Sonia. That I would recommend at least 6 months out, so that if there is any credit issues, we have time. That if I do need to send you to one of my credit repair partners, that they have time to work on your credit. Sometimes it's only a month or two, but sometimes it just depends. If you unfortunately had some, life happens, and sometimes people have to go into foreclosure or bankruptcy. With Harvey last year, a lot of people found themselves in a financial distress that they weren't, it's never happened to them, but now that they are. So we need time, at least 6 months out, we need to start.
Yeah, and that's one of the points that I was going to make, that it's not always that you have to refer them to credit repair.
Correct.
Sometimes it's just a matter of just some little things that they need to take care of, right? And so if
Correct.
they come to you, the main thing is for them to come to you and for them to apply, and then you can
Yeah.
guide them, because
Yes.
sometimes it might just be, okay, you need to pay down these credit cards.
Right.
And sometimes it's not that people don't have the money to pay the credit, they just think that they're supposed to keep the credit.
Correct.
And so if they've been misinformed, then it's something they can
don't
fix
know.
sometimes. Yeah, they can just fix it,
Exactly.
take care of it. But absolutely, you don't want to
Definitely.
wait to the last minute. So if you're in a lease, for instance,
Yes.
and your lease is going to expire in March, don't
Right.
wait till February. Start right now.
Yes, that's what we want to do. We want to start making application now, and we want to look at your credit now. And like Liz said, very good point, Liz. Thank you for bringing that up. I do have credit repair partners, but there's also, I've been doing this for so long, and most seasoned loan officers will be able to look at a credit repair and will be able to tell you, is there something that we can do for you? We can, myself, the loan officer, can tell you what you need to do. And sometimes I can get someone's score up in 30 days to 60 days, and you never have to go to the credit repair partner. I know what to do. We have a system. It's a simulator, and we say we need 50 more points. We put it in there, and the computer spits out a paper that tells me exactly what you need to do, and you do it on your own. So it's really, with technology, we have those tools as well.
Susie, you mentioned Harvey.
Yes.
We've just come across the 1-year anniversary of Harvey, and
Yes.
I would imagine that so many people were devastated
Yes.
by the situation, whether they owned a home or not.
Correct.
What are the long-term repercussions? What are you seeing now? So say somebody had to move out of their home, but they still have to maintain their mortgage. I guess there's so many issues related to Harvey.
There are.
So give me
Sonia.
some examples of things that people are dealing with as a result of that.
Very good question. Yes. Due to Harvey, we have people, I talk to people every day. We have people that are still not back in their homes. I grew up in the southwest side of town, and I've run into lots of people that I grew up with, and people that live in that area, and Bel Air, Meyerland, all of that southwest side, flooded again, maybe for the second or third time, they're still displaced. A lot of people are living with relatives, some people renting homes, and they're still working with contractors to get their houses remodeled, and then some people are just selling.
Yeah.
So some people have decided just to sell and let the investor come in and buy that home and remodel it, because sometimes the FEMA money wasn't enough, and sometimes their insurance, some of them didn't have flood insurance if they've never flooded before. So we are seeing a lot of those issues.
What about credit issues? So say somebody has a mortgage. Obviously,
Yes.
they're having to maintain the mortgage whether they're living in the home or not.
That's correct.
And I would imagine that maybe they decide to sell to an investor and then they want to get into another home, but I
Yes.
don't know. Is that something that mortgage companies are paying attention to, or is there any kind of allowances for that situation? Or
Are you referring, Sonia, to people that maybe got behind on their payments
Yes.
because of the hurricane?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that happened. Certainly,
Yes.
people got behind, and then some of the creditors allowed them to be a little bit late.
Yes.
And I think maybe for a couple of months they didn't
Yes.
report it. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. That a lot of the mortgage companies, they just called the mortgage company and let them know that they were going to be behind. And a lot of the mortgage companies have been working with people, and they're allowing them to pay late or a reduced payment, and they're really going into loan modifications.
Yeah, I know that. Like I said, I know that some creditors allowed people. They said, "Okay, well, you're not going to have to pay for the next 2 or 3 months after the hurricane,
Right.
and we're not going to report it to the credit bureau."
Correct. That's what they
But
did.
however, I could imagine it could be a problem if someone didn't call the creditor. They just took it
Yes.
upon themselves to just stop paying.
Yes.
And then they have
Yes.
all these lates on several accounts. That
Yeah.
could be a problem.
Yeah, that could be a major problem. It would impact their scores. On mortgage lates do impact the scores a lot. It will drop it a lot.
So I'm wondering, speaking of neighborhoods, so what are the up and coming hot neighborhoods in Houston right now that you see?
Well, as a lender, I have people that are buying all across Houston. I have a lot of people that buy in Spring, Humble, Katy, Pearland, and Richmond and Rosenberg is actually, I have a lot of buyers there as well. Liz, and you're on the real estate side.
Right, yeah. It's a more real estate question, and I think definitely a lot of areas, but exactly the ones that Susie mentioned. Katy is just booming, absolutely
Yes.
booming. It is. And, we're in a very good market in Houston. Of course, there's a shortage of homes, but we still have a lot of people that are looking to buy, and certainly Pearland is always a
Yes.
good area. They're always very popular area. Sugarland and Katy and Spring, definitely.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm in the southeast side of town, and that's also a very good area.
I'm very curious, why are home prices so different depending on the neighborhood? For example, I know a house in Southeast Houston
Correct.
is much more expensive than a house perhaps in Spring, or it used to be anyway.
It's called location. There are certain. I mean, that's just the simple way to put it. Is
Yeah.
that people prefer certain locations than other locations, and it could be primarily because of schools. That's certainly one
Yes.
reason. They're schools. People really are looking at those school districts, and so, for instance, I might have a buyer, and in fact, I had one very recently that they wanted a good school. And so, let's say, and then of course they'll look up what good schools are. You can Google it, right? And so one of the good schools was Katy. So they go to Katy, but they're also looking at Pasadena. Same house, the same square footage in Katy is going to cost you a lot more money than in Pasadena because you're looking at the school districts.
The district.
And the districts, and of
Yes.
course, in order for them to have such good schools, they're paying more taxes.
Correct.
So that person is going to pay more house payment because the house is going to be higher. The taxes are definitely a lot higher. So more taxes, just consider overall, better community. They have a lot more shopping, a lot more activities, a lot more of everything. And so you're really paying for the location. That's the bottom line.
Yes.
We're so blessed in Texas that Texas, I think, has maintained a good economy overall, consistently. And I just see people keep coming and coming and coming, and we keep building. What are the projections for the next 5 to 10 years? Because I just don't see where, our highways are congested and we just keep building out. I mean, what are the real estate projections, say, in 5 years?
Well, definitely we're going to continue to grow, and definitely there is concern because of the area. Yeah, definitely it's going to be a lot of people, and one of the problems, of course, is that we already have a shortage of homes, and
Correct.
yes, we have more people coming in, so we might have to start building up. Like they do in Chicago and in New York, right? We're not there yet, but I think maybe sometime in the future we're gonna need to. But no, there's no sign of the market, slowing down.
No.
Absolutely not.
No, not at all.
Well, ladies, they are signaling us for a commercial. Already. So that concludes this section here. Susie, as always, once again, I want to thank you for being our sponsor, and thank you for being our guest and all that valuable information that you have provided to us.
Thank you, Liz. I really appreciate and have enjoyed my time here today with you and Sonia.
Thank you. Well, don't go away. We are going to come back with our second guest, Victor Escalante. Welcome back to Casa, Vida Houston on CBBA Radio. And we would like to welcome our next guest, Victor Escalante, and he is with Escalante Training and Consultant. Welcome, Victor.
Glad to be with you, ladies.
Well, glad to finally have you on our show, Victor. Victor and I go way back. It seems like everybody I know from NHPO, but he and I sat on the board of NHPO for several years. Again, we're at the beginning, some 13, 14 years ago. And Victor does many things. He's also in media. He's also been in media. I know when I met you, Victor, you were in media, right?
I was working at the Houston Chronicle, yes.
At the Houston Chronicle, that's right.
NLP. So I did. And he took you through a process that was less than a minute of taking your experience of what you were experiencing inside and playing with what we call submodalities. Submodalities are the micro elements of all the different senses. And so I was amazed at how in just an instant I could change my emotional state from that of being demotivated and going into a highly empowered, motivated state. I knew this was different. I was already a walking encyclopedia of motivational books, and I had been through all kinds of sales trainings, but this was different. This was different because he taught you how to run the brain. Now, a disclaimer here, Tony Robbins did not originate NLP. He was trained in NLP, and I wanted to go straight to the source of where NLP came from. And so I went through a certification program at an institute, official institute, and I went through 3 levels of certification. I became a practitioner, I became a master practitioner, postmaster, and a trainer.
So I wonder, as you mentioned, I know Tony Robbins calls it changing your state. How easy is it for an untrained person to change their state?
It's really easy. I've done this over the years myself in doing live radio broadcast. And we could do an exercise here, but I don't recommend it because if people are driving or if people are doing something. I even had one case where a state trooper was listening to me, and I said, turn off your radio if you're driving. And he didn't listen to me, so what he found himself doing was swerving on the road. Oh, and he was so impressed with how it made him feel that he came in because he had an old trauma where he had fallen into a cave, and he wanted to fix that. So changes can happen in an instant.
I was going to say, now you also do hypnosis, don't you?
I'm a certified clinical hypnotist, and that came straight from where NLP got its languaging, which is Milton Erickson. Milton Erickson was a famous psychiatrist that he was able to get better results with hypnosis than through using medication.
So is it very similar, the NLP, what you do in the hypnosis? Or?
So that's a good question. And there's a lot of confusion about this. Hypnosis is nothing more than languaging. That's it. It's like the language and the images that we use with ourselves automatically put us into a hypnotic trance state. Every day we wake up and we go from trance state to trance state throughout our entire waking life. And for many people, it's the exact same problem trance that they live in. And so you need to be very deliberate in how you use your brain and how you communicate with others, because you intuitively are a hypnotist, whether you're parenting, whether you're teaching, whether you're selling. Some people are excellent hypnotists, even though they never studied, because it has to do with how you communicate, and some of them are really lousy.
Well, I'm going to get some free advice here now. We know it's been very rainy here in Houston for about a week, and the entire weekend was gray and gloomy. I have the tendency to get very
Melancholy.
yes, and too much rain and not enough sunshine makes me really have to focus on my state of mind, because if it's gray for days on end, I really have to focus and make myself think more positive thoughts, right? And get outside and do things. So what do you recommend? Is that something that happens regularly to people, and how can you?
So watch this. I'm going to do this live with Sonia, okay? So Sonia, so there are several emotions that you're experiencing during a gloomy day like this. Heavy, overcast, maybe some rain. And so what that does is it dredges up old memories from your past where you experience some depressing, maybe painful emotions that are associated to the climate, the rainy weather, the gloominess. Now, some people who live in this kind of culture where there's a lot of rain and there's a lot of gloominess, is like they're very happy. So because they are accustomed to running a totally different trance state. Now, so it's as simple as this. So I'm going to ask you to identify what is the emotions that you feel during a time like this, because that's where you have to begin, is what are you feeling? Most people do not know how to identify their feelings. So Sonia, tell me what it is that you're feeling right now at this moment here in the station.
So be careful when you ask for free
Yes,
advice.
yes.
Well, I think like you said, melancholy. I feel very, I don't want to say lethargic, but just maybe not as much energy. I want to sleep and just, not really do much of anything.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Close your eyes right now. Close your eyes right now and imagine the vacation that you took in Mexico. I know you took a vacation. It was in Cozumel or Acapulco or somewhere down there. Somewhere where you went to the beach. Do that now. Imagine going back to the beach in Mexico. Now, what I want you to notice, those of you that are watching this, is notice her eyes. She's starting to experience an auto-hypnotic trance state by her eyes fluttering. Her eyelids are fluttering, and so that means is that she's taking her attention inward, and when you do that, you automatically begin to a light trance. But let me get back to Sonia. So Sonia, I want you to go back fully in time, because your mind does not recognize the past, present, or future. Be there now. Imagine, feel the sun on your face. Feel the sun on your skin. Hear the sounds. Hear the people. Hear the people talking in Spanish. Smell the air at the beach. When you do that, as you're doing that right now, what you're doing is you're automatically processing thousands and thousands of bits of information that were there stored in your past, and you're now accessing it. And notice your internal state right now. What do you feel? Tell me what you feel.
Very relaxed, very peaceful.
You can open your eyes now. Guys, this is what Olympic athletes do, and the reason I know this is I work with them. Before they go into a competition, they psych themselves up by thinking back of past successes where they had excellent performance, because they want their mind to automatically go into that excellent state. And so for salespeople, the practical application of this is, if you're having a bad day, if you're a realtor and you just lost a big deal, you need to change that state. If you go into another negotiation or if you're going to go home, you need to change that state, because that's going to contaminate your present.
I think we need to practice on this.
Right? I'm liking it. I was like, is she going to start acting like a chicken?
No,
that was like hypnosis.
So let me differentiate. People think that I'm going to hypnotize them, make them cluck like a chicken or other things. That is stage hypnosis. What I practice is clinical hypnosis, which is very, very different. And I'm going to give 5 audio recordings of my program, Blueprint for Success, which is a meditation that is about 31 minutes, and you'll be snoring in less than 15 minutes.
I'm gonna need one of those.
Yes.
No, but I'm just kidding. I'm just playing when it comes to the chicken, because the honest truth is that I love hypnosis. I have been hypnotized for weight loss, and I started not recently, but I was doing hypnosis. I'm thinking my daughter was 10 at the time, so that was about 30 years ago. And I remember because she actually also did it. And so that has been, like, as far as any kind of diet program, what has worked the best for me was hypnosis. And I haven't been able to find that lady. She was a therapist that actually did that. But I remember, because I took my daughter, and at the time, to undergo hypnosis also for weight loss, and she was 10 years old, and I'm not kidding you, we would offer her pizza and she'd say, no thank you, hamburgers, no pizza, candy, no pizza. So I do believe in clinical hypnosis. I really do, and I actually have studied it a little bit myself also.
So basically, I guess to summarize, what you're doing when you're working with individuals is training or helping them train themselves, I guess, to put themselves in a different state of mind.
Yes.
To fit whatever situations they're going through.
You need the right state for the right task that you're doing. Right now, we are all in a light trance because we're going into that automatic response, where in this case you're tracking on multiple levels, because you're focusing on your thoughts, what you're going to say, you're focusing on me as a guest, and you're focusing on Liz. And so because the virtue of that, because there's so much attention to pay attention to, you automatically go into a trance, because the conscious mind can only handle 7 bits of information plus or minus 2.
But that's so true, because that I actually feel like I'm in a trance.
Yeah.
I never thought about it, I never
Yeah.
expressed it, but that is how I feel when I'm in the show. It's like I totally block everything out, and I'm only focused on the show. But you're right, on different things. I've got to think about what the guest is saying, what I'm going to say next, and and what's going on with the producer inside here, etc. You're right, but I always feel like I'm in a trance.
Every great performer, every great athlete knows how to manage trance states, and that's what you need to learn to do.
Wow, thank you.
Now, Victor, you also do a 9-week coaching program. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell
Currently-
us? Okay, I'm sorry. Can we let's hold on that a little bit while we go to a commercial break, and then we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Back to Casa y Vida Houston, and we are talking to Victor Escalante. Very interesting conversation we're having with him, and he was telling us also that he is going to do a giveaway of 5 audio recordings. And so what we'd like you to do is share the link to this show, and then place the hashtag transformation. Hashtag transformation. Share the link, and on the screen we've got there the CD is called Your Blueprint for Success. And he's telling us that he can actually send you the link so you can listen to it on your smartphone. So make sure that you share right now, and then we are going to do a giveaway on our Casa y Vida show. Facebook page. And so Victor, you also have a 9-week training program. Tell us about that, please.
This 9-week training program came as a result of some people wanting to hire me, but they couldn't afford me because I'm very expensive for the average person. And so I decided to create this class, 9 weeks, 2 hours every Thursday. We do it again today. It's the 3rd week. And we also transmit live. We transmit live for those people that can't make it in person. I highly recommend that people attend in person, but for those that can't make it, you can tune in to the program. And every week we go into the trance states that people live and how to break that, how to break through those trance states, so that you can, by design, create a happy state of living by aligning yourself to where you become more congruent, so that what you think, what you say, what you feel, and what you do is all in alignment.
You know, and I just can't help think of how simple the process is, you know, and when I hear you speak of it and I've seen you do it before, it's such a simple thing, but it's so difficult for people to actually put it into practice. Do you find that?
Yes, learning to run your brain is not a fad. Your mind did not come with the owner's manual, so if you don't know how to run your brain, other people will run it for you. And that is why you have to do due diligence. You got to do the work in order to learn how to run your brain.
And that's funny how most of us don't know how to run our brain. Instead, we let the brain, or just thoughts that come into our brain, run us.
Every day we have an average of 60,000 thoughts per day, and most of them are the same ones day in and day out, and that's why people are so stuck.
Well, and you use the word blueprint a lot. So blueprint is life experiences, or
Blueprint is having a process. Builders have a blueprint because they know the start to finish process, and they know how they're going to do it in the different stages. And so the blueprint for success is a function of learning the process of running your brain.
what has been your success rate? What are the some of the things that people say after working
That's a
with you?
good question, because I've worked with thousands of people over the years, and I've also seen where people don't change. And that to me is more fascinating than the ones that do change, because I'm so accustomed to people changing that it's no big deal when they experience this miraculous change. But it's the ones that don't change that to me are the most interesting. And I've also identified the specific areas and the belief and mindsets that they have towards not changing. I'll give you one example. My former secretary has been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and she only has 6 months to live according to the oncologist. She sat in on hundreds and hundreds of trainings, and she listened to me, and she could probably quote me, but she never applied herself. She was always into this pobrecita me. I've had such a difficult time. I've had so many adversaries and struggles in my life that she never got past it. It's called the language of woundology. I'm wounded, I'm broken, oh, feel sorry for me, pobrecita.
So when people are stuck on that that thought process, that poor me, the victim mentality, I guess they find a spot that's comfortable for them and they choose to live there, and so I guess those are the people that you
And
find.
they hypnotize others into feeling sorry for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all it all has to do with I think you have to want it. You have to be wanting it. You have to be willing to accept it, willing to accept change.
Well,
That's
for
what it
you,
boils down
for
to.
you as a coach, though, Victor, how do you change that pattern, or do you just kind of decide to walk away at some point?
Let me tell you, I had a lady recently that contracted with me for 3 sessions. That lady needed to contract with me for a year, okay? Because I guarantee you that in 1 year, in identifying the deep in the recesses of her subconscious mind, the reason why she doesn't want to change, I would have been able to do it. And that is why a lot of your high-end coaches that charge many thousands of dollars, they will not accept you unless you commit to like a year's program. So 1 or 2 sessions will probably work for you, but the majority, if you have deep problems, you need to consider some kind of long-term coaching. I just recently completed a 1-year coaching program with Angelica Noyola. Those you guys know her. Mm-hmm. Very successful catering company, and she's been able to take her success to a whole nother level. She was already successful, but now she's a rock star up there because she learned to run her emotions and run her brain.
Very important we control our emotions. Absolutely. Well, Victor, we have run out of time, and thank you so much for such great information. Like I said, I might just be a client of yours very soon.
You might see a transformation in Liz.
Yes. So, guys, again, I want to thank Victor, and there is our information, my information, and Sonia's. We are running out of time here, so just want to say thank you so much for watching us, and as always, we will be with you next Thursday at 1 p.m. and every Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye.